you do
This
that?
meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Okay. Good morning again, everybody. This is the first of a couple of sessions under a new format where we're going to have more. I'm going to talk less and we're going to have more open discussion at the end. And our topic is step 11, and the subtitle is the most important and the least used step in AA. And that comes from hearing a man doing a big book workshop, and when he got to Sunday morning with the spirit, when they do 10, 11, and 12 typically, he said that in his considered opinion, 80 to 90% of people in AA don't take step 11 very seriously. And so I'm trying to make a case for uh, its importance. Of course, I'll be speaking, I've got to speak from my own experience. And this is going to be a general one about different things about prayer that uh, come from some different sources. And then next week we'll do by the book. We'll read step 11 and talk about some of its details, and then we'll have a third session before I take off on the boat. So here we go. So one of those opening readings I love. It's early in the book. It's page 28. It's reading number 3, and this is a promise, and they're promising us if what we have learned and seen and felt means anything, it means that all of us can have a relationship upon simple and understandable terms. I mean, they're saying this is not rocket science. Um, Having a relationship with higher power is the essence of what we do. You know, when we get to page 164, it's going to say you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with God is right, and things are going to work out. That's all it is. So they're saying both early in the book and at the end that having this relationship with a power greater than your human beingness, greater than your body and your mind. Um, well, of course, we're tying it to we're not going to be able to stay sober if we don't have that relationship. That relationship is fundamental. Um, but we do have to remember inside AA, this is about getting um, sober for starters, then move into the sanity part, and finally move into the spiritual part. You'll remember, any of you that have done that big book workshop, and we have this 3-column worksheet that starts with the physical aspect, the mental aspect, the spiritual aspect, and it's telling you that asks you to have physical aspect. The phenomenon of craving means I can't drink safely. And the only solution we have is abstinence. You get to the mental part, and my favorite name is the strange mental blank spot, because I'm a high bottom, and my life was good except when it came to drinking and the results of that, and the symptom is the failure of the hot stove defense, that I get burned by alcohol time after time, and my mind can't see the truth of how my body reacts, or it can't accept it. It needs the relief of alcohol so badly to get away from itself. That's the queer mental twist. I'm seeking relief from me. My mind tells me I'm seeking relief from you and the world out there, but truth is I'm seeking relief from me. Um, and our solution to the mental aspect, the failure of the hot stove defense, is steps 4 through 9. This is mental work where we're putting down our negative feelings of resentment, of fear, and of remorse, where we feel badly about ourselves, and we're being taught techniques to work through them. And then we have 6 and 7, which in is the prayer for the restoration to sanity in terms of how it is useful to higher power and to my fellows. And then we make amends as a way of being restored to sanity. And then that gets us ready to do spiritual work, which is living in 10, 11, and 12 every day. Um, Step 11 is saying sought through prayer and meditation. So we got to talk about prayer versus meditation to improve our conscious contact. I like to feel improve my relationship, because it's not just conscious contact, it's the give and take relationship with higher power. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand God. Praying only. That only is such a key word. It's the only thing I'm praying for. Because my main concern is I just want to feel better than I do. I just want to feel good instead of rotten about everything, or frightened about everything, or remorseful about my behavior and what's going on in my life. Um, but this is not saying that. This is saying praying only for knowledge of God's will for me. Well, will is what works better for me is purpose. Praying only for knowledge of God's purpose for my life, and then the power to carry that out. And I love the it's not about you, when it is about me, I just want to feel good. I want to feel safe. I want to feel good, and I want to justify my selfish behavior, self-justification. And then Rick Warren comes along and says, it's not about you. And it's not about how you feel. The purpose of your life is far greater than your own personal fulfillment. What the heck? what do you mean? Your own personal fulfillment, your peace of mind, or even your happiness. It's not about that. It's far greater than your career, your family, your career, or even your wildest dreams and ambitions. News to me, headline news. If you want to know why you were placed on this planet, you must begin with God. So, how about you must begin with your relationship with God? What are you doing about your relationship with God? And that's where prayer, Dr. Bob, at the end, there he is. He's going to die in a couple of months. And he says this all comes down to love and service. The whole thing boils down to love and service, not feeling good and acquiring a bunch of stuff. Um, so you must begin with God. You were born by God's purpose for God's purpose. Well, how the heck am I going to find out what God's purpose for my life is? And one of the things that I love, we read it, I love about the Ignatian stuff is he says your purpose is to trust, love, and serve God. And you will know that you are doing that when you feel faith and hope and love. And when you're serving the ego's purpose for your life, you will know that because you will feel doubt and fear and despair. So that our feelings wind up being a result, a consequence of how we're living, not a goal for how we're living. And I love that, because then as soon as I feel restless, irritable, and discontent, it's telling me I'm living to the ego's purpose for my life and not to the spirit's purpose for my life, or the soul's purpose for my life, or however you want to say it. So this praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out, that becomes a big deal. And I can tell you, um, absolutely tell you that I have the ability to think ahead of my game. I can see it, I can articulate it. It doesn't mean I experience it. But in these last couple of years, I've felt it more and more as a result of trying to talk about this stuff and talk with other people about this stuff, and try to get a feeling for where they're at. And so I don't know what I'm trying to say is other than it's I have never satisfied my ego. I have never, my ego's always on me, telling me what I need to have a happy life. And I've worked hard to get those things that my ego tells me I need, for it to be happy. And my ego's usually happy for 5 or 10 minutes before it comes up with something else that I need, something else that needs to be different than it is already, um, for me to go on. But when I go to God's purpose for my life and I'm clearer about that, um, things go well. So what's the point of step 11? Well, point of step 11, prayer and meditation. Prayer, typically we say there's prayer, there's meditation, and there's contemplation, typically. And there are all kinds of there got to be a half a dozen titles of types of prayer involved. Um, and so prayer is usually me talking to higher power, expressing whatever it is, expressing my intent. And meditation is me trying to listen to higher power, trying to get myself honest, open, and willing to actually receive. And for most of us, this is an act of faith. Most of us don't have experiences that well, let me not say that. I've always been extremely intellectual, and through this work and being part of AA, I can tell you that I value, um, the intuitive mind way more than I value the intellectual mind. Um, I want to think I'm smarter than average, just like Yogi Bear, smarter than the average bear. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why, because especially when you read spiritual literature and you hear things like this guy, Brother Lawrence, his famous book was Practice the Presence of God. And his whole thing was, forget all the concepts, all the theory. You're supposed to spend your time trying to feel for the presence of God, and then when you get indications of how to live, you go about and do that. We're in this modern high-tech society where we all value, you know, uh, knowledge, more than spirit, I guess you could say. And I just want to remind everybody, one of the favorite benedictions in organized religion that a lot of people love is, may the what is it? Not the presence of God. May the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, be with you and remain with you now and forevermore. You know what they're I'm not we're not going to understand our way to the peace of God. This is not a conceptual thing. And I think prayer is so important because prayer, we're trying to get out of the intellectual experience and more into our spiritual experience of being here. People have been talking about mind, body, and spirit since the beginning of time. It's all through and what you find so much, and part of the purpose of these opening readings is to understand that I'm trying to, well, I'll speak personally, trying to escape from the tyranny of my human experience, my mind and my body, being so definite about what it wants out of what it calls its life. And for somebody like Rick Warren or Ignatius to come along and say, it's not about your body and mind. This is about your soul and what your soul is here to do, and how your soul is here to learn and grow. And I can tell you, um, I think I understand a lot about my body and my mind, uh, and I'll claim some credit for it. I don't know what it how it looks, what it does, whatever. But when you get to the soul, I know immediately that's way beyond any ability. From where did my soul come from? How come it gets to live multiple lives and my human body's got a start date and a stop date, and I'm rapidly approaching the stop date. And you know so I love that. I love getting out of the tyranny of my mind and body and getting into the mystery of my soul. So anyway, let's get back to step 11, and we've talked about moving from sober to sane to serene, and I'm saying that love and service are our two main um, avenues for trying to move to growing along spiritual lines. And it is if when you read step 10, it talks about we have entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding. Understanding is a mental thing, and effectiveness, that's a behavioral thing. And then it goes on to talk about, and I remember uh, my sponsor saying, you can substitute agnostic for alcoholic. Um, we are not cured of alcoholism, is what step 10 says. Change that to agnosticism. We are not cured of agnosticism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual experience. How am I going to maintain my spiritual condition? Well, prayer is number one. When we get to people talk a lot about three legacies of our program, the triangle, unity, recovery, service. Unity represents the experiences of the fellowship. Recovery is our one-on-one work with each other, going through the steps in the book, and service are our service commitments, not just to AA, but to our lives. Well, the whole thing is in this circle, and the circle represents prayer and meditation. So what I'm hoping we'll do as we go along in this stuff um, are eventually get to, if you're willing to go along with it, to write a personal prayer. I did this some time ago, and then modified it for a long time, and now after reading it 100 times, it's in my mind, so I can go to this. Like I don't do this every day, but I try to. Um, this morning, waking up, I'll go through the third step prayer, the seventh step prayer, and then these two personal prayers that we may talk about in a later session. And I'm amazed, for having said these over and over again. It's at least 10 years that I've been doing this. Um, how meaningful it winds up being, how the prayers, I feel this about the third step prayer and the seventh step prayer for sure, what their meaning is after a long time is significantly richer to me today than it was before. So just a couple of little things about prayer before we get to open discussion. One of the things that I loved, I hit this one before the Ignatian stuff, but this is from How to Listen to God, and How to Listen to God talks about two-way prayer, and two-way prayer means I am talking to God, and then I am listening to God, and it's just a wonderful bunch of stuff, especially because they talk about the conditions. These are the conditions under which prayer works better: to be quiet and still, to listen, to be honest, to test the thoughts when we're writing down the thoughts, and some are coming from the ego mind and some are coming from the spirit, and we learn to distinguish. Um, then eventually he says, let's see, um, yeah, okay, so take time and then relax and then tune in. Open your heart, tune in, open your heart to God, either silently or aloud. just say to God in a natural way. Now that's important because at least it's important to me. I'm supposed to be talking to God as a friend, um, not as an imperious thee and thine divine whatever. I'm talking to God as a friend, either silently or aloud. Just say to God in a natural way that you would like to find God's plan for your life. So I'm not, the planning part has, I like purpose better, but it doesn't matter. If plan works better for you, fine. So you would like to find God's purpose for your life. You want God's answer to the problem or situation that you are facing just now. And then it says, be definite and specific. This goes right along with Emmett Fox, and we'll be talking about Emmett Fox in prayer. There's a whole bunch of stuff in that study guide that I'd love to go through as a way of trying to um, improve, I guess. That's the word, step 11. Improve your experience of your prayer life, whatever that happens to be. So um, you want God's answer to the problem or situation you're facing just now. Be definite and specific in your request. Emmett Fox says vague prayers bring vague results. Specific prayers bring specific results. That's where you get the power. And one of the things that I love about our 4-column resentment system, because you can do it on anything. Forget the word resentment. I mean, you can do it on, we've talked some about people, institutions, principles, but even just that you could put in column 1 a fear, because the more specific I can get about what frightens me, the more specific the prayer for removal. It's a wonderful prayer on page 68. We ask God to remove our fear, and the more specific I can be about that fear, the more specific will be the result, and direct our attention to what God would have us be. And just before that, it said what God would have us do is to let God demonstrate through us what God can do. That's quite a challenging thought, and it's way back there in the step 4, the inventory on fear. So let's see if I want to say anything else before we. Okay, yeah. So last thing before we stop. So Ignatius, you remember that Ignatius has this principle and foundation, and all the spiritual exercises are built on that. And for me, my principle and foundation has become the line in the middle of page 68, and I'm saying it in my own words because that's an important part too, to modify it so you can say it in your own words. And we read it earlier today. Just to the extent, which is saying this is a continuum. It's not 100% or 0%. It's saying just to the extent that I humbly rely on God, and just to the extent that I behave the way I think God wants me to behave. That means I am trying to live to God's purpose for my life. Just to the extent of those two things, humble reliance and behaving the way I think God wants me to behave, I will experience serenity. I will match the calamity with serenity. It doesn't say the calamity ever stops. It doesn't say you won't be financially insecure to your dying day or something else. What it says is you will be able to meet that fear with a sense of serenity that you are okay and your life is okay and things are going to work out. So that's that for me, because that also means if experiencing restless, irritable, and discontent in any form, resentment, fear, selfishness, dishonesty, in any form, I can immediately go, well, are you not humbly relying, or are you not behaving? So where does step 11 fit into this? Well, it's both. Um, Step 11 is I'm seeking to improve my relationship with God, praying only for an understanding of what God wants me to do, what the purpose of my life here on planet Earth is, and the power to actually do it. Because lack of power is always our dilemma. So I'm going to ring this gong, and Mark will stop the recording, and we'll have some open discussion. Thank you for being here, and I hope to see you next week.